Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenegar, and welcome to a special episode of the Eddy Network podcast. And this begins a series of special episodes that I'm going to be doing while I'm on a long 3-week road trip. But I want to talk about some things that have occurred over the last several months with me. I think if you follow me, you'll know that in late February, I decided to step away from the book that I was writing, which is a follow-up to my Circle of Impact, and stop writing for publication. I've left comments here and there, but I've really not written anything of length or of coherence in that lengthy writing for quite some time. I stepped away from that. I also stepped away from a lot of the social media that I was doing and only responded to things where I had been asked to respond. So I didn't go out looking for stuff. I just didn't look for it at all. And so I stepped away and I found pretty quickly that I was captivated by the thought of time. And I think it's a product of engaging in a lot of thought with people who have written about time in the context of science, in the context of consciousness, in the context of spirituality, in the context of phenomenology. I think all of these are areas where time has played a role in how they understand the world that they're trying to describe from within the perspective that they are speaking from. And so I started looking for stuff to read, and I've shared some of this already. I found myself very captivated by T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets, which is a long poem. And I think if you were to find it, and you'd spend some time reading it and reading it and reading it, you'd find it also provocative in describing what the modern world's relationship to time is. Then I became captivated with time as it is expressed in William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. I downloaded an audio version of the book. The first time you read the book, it's very difficult to read because it's written in stream of conscious, and the four chapters of the book are with different narrators. And one of the narrators is a young man who has a very, very low IQ. And so his perception of himself is that of probably a 3-year-old. And then there's his brother and his two brothers who also have their own narratives that they're presenting. And then there is most likely the African American woman who is the lead servant in this wealthy family in Jefferson, Mississippi. And her perspective is probably the closest to being normal and whole and reasonable and rational. And at one point she says, I've seen the beginning and now I see the end, that she sees time as a whole thing. And these ideas were provocative to me because I felt for a very long time that we're trapped in an environment where there is no past and there is no future. They're simply constructs which are used to illustrate the present. And they are just simply representations of the present. And they're not very good representations. And so the past is really something we want to forget. And the future is simply a continuation of what we're doing in the present. And even if we see ourselves as innovators or creators, there's not something beyond the present that really commands our attention. And that's the way I see the modern world has wound up being. And I'm going to say more about that in a couple more um, special episodes. But what I've discovered during by taking this time off is I found some peace. Not that I needed it, but I found some peace. I found perspective. I found that um, I didn't feel so. I didn't feel an urgency to be informed and to be up to date with what is going on in the world and up to date with what has been written about on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Instagram. I felt a level of freedom that I had not felt in quite some time, and it energized my creativity. It energized my mind and my spirit, and so you know one of the goals was okay. I need to write another book. I have some in mind that I want to do, but what is the next book I need to write? And so I decided to write a novel. And the novel will, in essence, be about time, but not time in the abstract, but time as it is experienced. The time that is the real past and its consequences, time as it is currently being lived, and time as the future calls us into. And all three are different. And I'm calling this story the simulacrum of time. And I've come to the conclusion that I believe that all our sense of time and all our sense of reality, all our sense of wanting to create our own reality is really nothing more than a simulation of reality. It is not reality. Now, that sounds very abstract. I'm sorry if it does. But what it means is that there's a whole lot more out there that's going on in time and in the world of that we would call reality that is important and maybe more significant for our lives than simply what I can conjure up in my own mind that is a way of defining the way the world should be or the way the world is. And if you read a lot of Substack, which I do, you see this sense of I am the creator. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the creator of my world. I'm the creator of reality. Now, people may not say it in those words, but they're convinced that what they have to say is important and defining for other people. And so you hear them say how important it is for them to be a person of influence. I've had conversations with people about that, and I say, so what is the impact of influence? What changes because you are influential? I'm not saying you shouldn't be. I'm just asking the question to get at the root issue of what does it mean to be an influential person. And many people don't know what that question means. And I assume from that, I think that to be influential means that you're recognized for being influential. It's something that comes and feeds back on you. So if I'm writing a story, I'm setting it in the context of a family, of a large family, a large family that is large over many generations, that at the very beginning suffers a serious loss of the parents of six children. And so the story emerges from how these six children relate to the loss of their parents and how the parents of those parents, the grandparents, relate to having to take care of those six children. And the protagonist of this novel is the youngest of the six children. And and so it'll be his story, and it'll be a story. I mean, I'm still figuring out what the story is, but it'll be a story about change and how he changes through the course of his life. So, to kind of give you a little nugget that maybe prompts you to want to be a part of reading this thing as I write it. The um, the young boy Robert is 3 years old when his parents die in a plane crash. His older brothers and sisters, the youngest of those five siblings, is 6 years older than him. So he's kind of the afterthought birth, and the other five are really close in age, and and so they come to live with the grandparents, and the grandfather takes the youngest, Robert, under his wing. And what we see is the experience and wisdom of age, and not just the wisdom of his own life, but that of the generations that came before him. And that has an effect upon this boy, who then becomes a young man. And my guess is that by the end of the book, we will have taken him through his entire life and maybe reflecting on what his life has meant in the context of time. I think what I want to say in this is to help people see beyond the present moment. I call that the eternal present. The present moment becomes a trap for us. It becomes a trap in the sense that we feel a certain obligation to respond to everything that is presented to us in the moment. Every moment, every 15 to 20 seconds moment, every minute, every hour moment. We keep our phones on and by our heads through the night because of being afraid of missing out on the moment. And so our voice is about speaking into someone else's moment that is being projected onto us. And I'm saying that is the tyranny of time, where we have no sense that the past matters and the future matters. Only the present matters. And I think that is the world we're trapped in. And this is the product of stepping away from all of this present-oriented world and spending a lot of time, um, particularly in the old world of Eliot and Faulkner, and Shakespeare. I am now, for the first time in my life, beginning to understand Shakespeare, and I'm deeply moved by what I see, and I'm deeply moved because of how contemporary it is. And there's so many situations that I see where the voice of Shakespeare would be beneficial to that friend or that leader, because if they had known the story of Macbeth or the story of Hamlet, the story of Julius Caesar, if they had known those stories and had incorporated those stories into their own life as a part of the cultural meaning of their life, they would be able to see what they are being asked to do. They'd be able to see what they're being asked to comply with that is not going to serve them or their families well. And this is part of what I'm trying to address. I can't figure out what everybody's situation is. I could only figure out mine and write from that perspective. Because in my family, as my father has kidded me for a very long time, he said, "Well, you practice ancestry worship." Well, I really don't practice the worship side, but I'm very attentive to who came before me and what is their story and what was the context of their lives before coming here to America, because they all came from Europe. And I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about what their experience was. I can only guess because of where they lived. But knowing that past, I call that knowledge the generational memory. Having that generational memory allows me to know what I don't want, what I do want. And I would say that the impulse of generational memory on me is primarily because of my grandmother, my mother's mother, who, when I was 12, told me, "You may do anything you want, but do not bring shame to the family name." And you may feel that that is a very harsh thing to say to a 12-year-old, but you didn't know me as a 12-year-old. I took it as liberation. I'm free. I am free within the bounds of honoring my family. And I know that's a very old and archaic thing to say. But I can tell you, for me, it is what has been the foundation of my life. And so all of that has kind of been revitalized in this time of sabbatical. And so I'll have more to say about it over the next couple of weeks as I travel, because I want to say things that are current to what I'm experiencing. I've done this before. I did some travel a couple of years ago where I did some reports on the road, I think is the way I called it. So that's what I'm going to do. And I think you'll find it, I hope, beneficial. So let me invite you to like the video and like the Substack, subscribe to both, and in particular leave a comment. I would appreciate that very much, because when you speak to me, your comments speak to me. Let me put it this way. When you leave a comment, that becomes an historical record of who you are in this present moment. And I can look back at that a week later, a month later, a year later, and reflect upon what you're saying to me and thinking, "Oh, I remember that. Oh, and that's what they're responding to. Oh, that's really important for me to remember as I move forward." And this is what I believe you have the opportunity to create for your own life. I'll have more to say about all this. I thank you for watching. Appreciate you all very much. And grateful for the opportunity to be with you. Thank you. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.